Welcome to Locker Room, Tunch and Wolf. This segment brought to you by Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and joining us.
He got it right. He did it right. I can't believe it. This is the first time, and like
no,
that's not true.
You lose your bet.
Yes, I do.
He now owes me 3 sushi dinners.
No, you can't because you're all organic. You can't collect.
Anyways, joining us, former Director of Communications and Marketing of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Joe Gordon, a legend in NFL circles. Joe, a lot of, we're talking about, Steeler history and with the 75th anniversary. And by the way, you're on the committee that picks the all 75th anniversary team, right?
Prior to 1970.
Prior to 1970.
The old
you're on the legends.
Right, yeah, the legends.
Oh,
team,
yeah.
right.
So you
Well,
got a
who
couple
better than a legend to pick legends, right?
Thank you.
As you've been such a big part of the history, we were talking about George Harrelson, talking about the Chief and Dan, and you also mentioned Pete Rozelle and Paul Tagliabue. You've worked with 2 of the commissioners.
Right.
What were they like? How were they similar? How were they different?
Rozelle was probably the sharpest guy I ever met.
You look a little like Rozelle. Anybody
Thank you.
that?
He's a good-looking guy.
He kind of looks like Rozelle.
He was really the perfect guy at the right time, right place, right time. The league was just really starting to sprout wings. TV was becoming such a dominant factor in pro football, and he was the right guy to steer the ship at that time. But he was just really something special. He always seemed to come up with the right answer no matter what the problems were. And I'll never forget, and you guys can relate to this, when Mel Blount retired as an active player, and he was interested in getting that job with the league in player relations, Rozelle called me and wanted to know, get as much information on Soup as possible. And I was really impressed with that because I'd known Rozelle and but never had as much direct contact with him. But we talked for about 15 minutes about Mel. And I was as honest as I could be about him. I said, this guy's really something special. I said, he's not the most sophisticated guy in the world, but I think he'd be the right guy for the job. And eventually he did get the job. But Pete was a master in recognizing the value of television and what you could do with it, and to the point today where television is just the 800-pound gorilla in pro football, and is probably more responsible for the success of the game than anything else other than the product itself, which is fantastic. But he guided them through those TV waters just with such expertise. It was amazing. And but you'd see him in those league meetings, and the way he had the grasp of every issue was really impressive. Then when Tagliabue came along, there was really a greater need for a legal mind. And Paul Tagliabue was an attorney by education and had practiced and had worked with the league for many years before he became the commissioner. But he did a great job too, and in both cases it was the right person at the right time there.
Would you? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say, a guy like Pete Rozelle, would you look at it as maybe he set the table for Paul Tagliabue, or was Tagliabue a guy that came along and took and was able to just bring on exactly what Rozelle started?
I think that Pete was kind of a mentor for Paul, because Paul was working for the law firm that handled a lot of the antitrust issues with the league, so they worked really closely together. So when Paul came in, it wasn't like somebody coming in off the street. The same thing is true with Roger Goodell right now. Roger's interesting too. I remember when he started with the league as an intern in the league office with Dan Edwards.
Yeah.
They went to IU together. And I remember Roger very well. But it kind of was the same scenario with Paul Tagliabue, growing up under the wings of Pete Rozelle and then taking over, but at a different time and a different task, which required more of a legal mind than, say, a promotional mind. Pete was a master of marketing. I mean, some of the things you've seen that happened with Pete, NFL Films, which is probably the preeminent film distributor in the country, does a lot of, they do a lot of things for Hollywood, a lot of things. They do Bruce Springsteen's videos or DVDs. The NFL film or NFL properties came along under Pete. Pete
yeah, I was a little disappointed.
That.
Those Craig Wolfley sports cars didn't go quite like I thought they were going.
Well,
I don't know why.
We'll blame Pete in the next world. But the league has really been fortunate in having people like that in a leadership role. And then, of course, you have the influence of people like Dan Rooney,
right.
Wellington Mara,
yeah.
Art Modell. Those people, when you sit in the back of the room in league meetings and see how those people operated, I mean, you really had to be impressed, and you understood why they had achieved the success they had. Lamar Hunt, and we mentioned Jerry Jones, Bob Kraft. Those people were really sharp cookies.
Now, you remember when we first met Roger Goodell on the field?
Right.
What was the one thing I asked him? You remember? He's from Jamestown, New York.
Right.
First thing I had to ask him, did you go and do you attend the Lucille Ball Film Festival they have every year? She's from Jamestown. I think it's important to know.
Absolutely.
I think inquiring minds want to know.
You know, you talk about the...
he didn't want to know.
Wolf does have an inquiring mind. I do, too. I'll ask you a little different question besides the Lucille Ball Film Festival in Jamestown, New York.
Well, come on. She's a major star.
I know. Yes.
Right.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
that's right, a Hall of Famer.
Right. The next thing you know, you're going to go off on Desi. Anyways, you were talking about television and the impact that it has had on the National Football League. And and there is no more famous a play that we've seen on television and NFL films. And by the way, there's a little different splice there if you ever watch it, because one's got Ranger on the field, one's got Ranger off the field. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
I know.
So, Wolf's dying to ask you, where were you?
Ranger.
Wait a minute. The Immaculate Reception.
Was not.
I'm sorry, I didn't say
was not on the field. But when they show
the he's on the field.
Snapping the ball, he snaps
on the field, right.
But who was it, Mike Webster?
No, it was...
no, Mike wasn't there.
Mike wasn't there. It was...
Dornbrook.
No, not Tom Dornbrook. It was before Dornbrook. I don't know who it was.
Boy, you totally
but Ray Mansfield
this
was
one.
down at the end of the sidelines
exactly.
after Franco ran right by him, and he was jumping up and down.
And with Tony Parisi with the water bucket, and Mansfield's right next to it. No, I think, the best view of anybody in Three Rivers Stadium for that play. It happened directly in front of me. I was looking at the press box. Now, I can't tell you with 100% certainty what happened, whether Tatum hit the ball first, whether Frenchie touched it or anything like that. But I saw Franco scoop it up. Catch it.
He didn't one-hop it, right?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
That is one of the greatest athletic plays, I think, in the history of sport. Catching that ball the way he did under those weather conditions. Remember, it was damp, it was cold.
Yep.
And he's running full speed to catch it 3 inches off the ground. But as far as what actually happened between Tatum and Fuqua, I don't think anybody will ever know that.
That was a dumb rule anyway.
Right, they changed the rule.
Yeah. Well,
and Frenchie, of all the people,
he says
he gets more mileage out of it than anybody else.
He knows less.
Yeah.
Of all the people, he'd have the least credibility. He says, I saw him last night, and he started with that again. I said, Frenchie, forget it. You don't know what happened. You got hit so hard, you didn't come around. But that play was just phenomenal. Then what a lot of people also think about that play, they think that we then went on to win the Super Bowl.
No, right, that's right. You lost.
And we didn't. We lost the next week to the Dolphins.
At home, what was up with how come the Dolphins came to play at Three Rivers when they had the better record?
At that time, it was a predetermined cycle. At the beginning of the year, the winners were determined, like the AFC Central Division champion would, say, play, in this case, the AFC West champion. And the game would be at the AFC Central's home field. It was all predetermined. And then the wild card played the AFC East, which was the Dolphins. And then whoever won that game would play the AFC Central. So it was all predetermined. That was stupid, too. They also changed that later on. Another thing, a misconception, Larry Seipel on the fake punt. Everybody thinks that won the game for that. That happened early in the second quarter. That tied the game. We were ahead 7-0. That tied the game. Later in the third quarter, we were ahead again.
Right.
And then they brought Greasy.
Right.
in. Earl Morrall was playing,
Right.
and then they brought Greasy in, and he hit, who's the guy in the Hall of Fame?
Paul Warfield.
Paul Warfield with like about a 60-yard slant.
See, that's that NFL Films thing. That's why the NFL Films has almost ruined the National Football League. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to find out the legend, the truth, to why the Steelers wear the decal only on one side of the helmet, right here in the locker room.